Hello students, today we are going to start with our second chapter, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. We know that sexual reproduction is the fusion of gametes forming the zygote. Fine. As we have studied in case of animals, that sexual reproduction is having three stages, that is pre-fertilization, fertilization and post fertilization stages. These stages are also there in flowering plants. Before starting with how sexual reproduction takes place in flowering plant, we must know that where is sexual reproduction takes place in flowering plant. So the answer is the reproduction in flowering plants takes place in an organ which is known as the flower. Flower is what actually? It is modified condensed shoot arising on the axis of a leaf like structure called as bracket. Why I am saying modified condensed shoot? Because flower is always formed on a mature plant. When shoot will get the signal from the hormones, or you can say when shoot undergo some physiological or structural changes as a result of hormonal production, in that case shoot will get transformed into flower. So whenever it will get the signal, shoot will get the signal, it will transform into flower. So we can say that flower is the modified condensed shoot. Fine. Now let's discuss about the parts of the flower. A flower is having four whorls or the appendages. Two whorls or appendages are called as accessory parts and two whorls or appendages are called as reproductive parts. These accessory parts are also known as non-reproductive part because they do not take part in sexual reproduction but they help in reproductive processes. These two parts are calyx and the corolla. Fine. Calyx, the outermost wall or the appendage of the flower is called as calyx and the individual appendage of calyx is known as sepals, which are green in color and protective in action. Next is the corolla, the accessory part or the you can say non-reproductive part. The second wall or the appendage of the flower is corolla and its individual appendage is called as petal. A flower may have one petal, two petals, three petals, four petals. So all the petals, this part is called as corolla and individual appendage is called as petal, and petals are brightly colored and fragrant. Why they are brightly colored and fragrant? Because they help in pollination. How? Because due to their beauty or their bright colored, insects will get attracted towards them and insects will do the pollination. So this is the function. Like sepals are protective in action and petals help in pollination. So these two parts are the accessory parts. Next is the reproductive parts. These are the reproductive parts. Male reproductive part is called as androecium and the female reproductive part is called as gynoecium. Fine. Now androecium is the male reproductive part and its individual appendages or individual wall is known as stamen, and stamen is composed of two parts, that is anther and filament, and anther help in the production of microspores. These microspores leads to the production of pollen grains and pollen grains represent male gametophyte. Similarly, gynoecium is the female reproductive part and its individual appendage is called as carpels या pistil, and carpel or pistil has three parts, that is the upper part is called as stigma. This part receive pollen grains. Then a long stalk called as style, and the basal swollen part is called as ovary, and ovary contains ovule. Fine. And the function is they help in the production of megaspores, fruits and seeds, because we know after fertilization what happens, ovule get converted into seed and ovary will make the fruits. Fine. These two, like micro and mega. Remember one thing, micro is for male and mega is for female. Fine. These were the parts of the flower. As I told you that if we talk about sexual reproduction, there will be three phases: pre-fertilization, fertilization and post-fertilization. These two, the formation of microspores and formation of megaspores, both of these events are included in pre-fertilization events called as microsporogenesis and megasporogenesis. Microsporogenesis means formation of microspores in male. Megasporogenesis means the formation of megaspores. So megaspore is for the female and microspore is for the male. Microspores give rise to pollen grains, and pollen grains represent male gametes or the male gametophyta. In the same way, in female, megaspores will give rise to a structure called as embryo sac, or you can say the female gametophyte. Fine. Let's see with the help of the diagram. See, this is the longitudinal section of a flower. You know very well about the parts of the flower. These green colored part, these are called as what? Sepals. Individual, this part is called as actually calyx, and individual appendage 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 are called as sepal. This colored part, these two, 1 petal, 2 petal, maybe 3 petal, 4 petals, individual appendage is petals, and this appendage is called as what? Corolla. Similarly, this is the male reproductive part. Male reproductive part is androecium, and the individual appendage is the stamen. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the stamen, and stamen is having two parts, that is, this lobed structure is called as anther, and this stalk is called as the filament. Similarly, this part, this is the gynoecium part. Gynoecium, actually female reproductive part, having its appendage is called as what? Pistil. Fine. Or the carpel. This is the carpel, one carpel. A flower may have one carpel, two carpel, three, etc. Fine. Carpel consisting of three parts. The upper part is called as stigma, which receive the pollen grains for the pollination. This long stalk is called as style, and the basal swollen part is called as what? Ovary. Inside the ovary is present the ovule. Fine. And this is the thalamus of the part. Fine. So this was about the parts of the flower. Next we will do the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. We will start with the first event, that is pre-fertilization events, which include the formation of microspore in male and formation of megaspores in female.